Thank you for joining us today. I'm Stephen Francis.
I'm Caden Francis.
And we're here. Tell you what, Caden, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, there was a big game in the NBA last night, and I think that, adds a little bit to the topic of pressure and just everyday life pressures, sports pressures, all that.
Pressure. We can do that. Okay, that's all I'm going to do before we have to worry about copyright or something. But yeah, that's a deal. Let's talk about pressure right after the open. Welcome to the Franchastic Podcast, episode 3. I feel like I'm coming in a little bit hot there. That's all right. We're producing on the fly here as we go. Welcome. I'm Stephen Francis.
I'm Caden Francis, co-host.
Yeah, he is our co-host, and we are here to talk today. So last night, buddy, was a pretty big sporting event. Game 7, Western Conference Finals of the NBA. Big matchup. It was the Spurs and the Thunder.
Heavyweight battle.
Very heavyweight battle. In fact, that's kind of how things played out and what it ended up looking like. Tell us what happened, buddy.
I didn't watch much, but I know it was a big, there were not fights, but there were big fouls. They were playing physical. Both teams were definitely backs against the walls. I feel like there was more pressure on OKC. Just they're in their home field. They're the defending champs. They're the 1 seed. They look like they're unstoppable. So, and then this young homegrown Spurs team just comes in and is like, oh, hold up, we're gonna come in, and there's pressure to keep that crown.
Yeah, you're hitting on some good words there. Pressure. I think that's going to end up being kind of the theme of the day, and that's okay. Yeah. So the underdog comes in and win, and that's really what I think. That's a great starting point here, talking about pressure and being the underdog or versus being the favorite. Who do you think has more pressure going into a game like that? Whenever we look at some of the great David versus Goliath type games that have happened in the past, 1 seed versus 8 seed. You see 1 versus 16 in the NCAA basketball tournament all the time because that's always the first round. Who's got more pressure on them in that situation?
In my opinion, I feel like it's always the favorite because they're the favorite. Everyone expects them to win. Everyone thinks it's going to be not even close. Everyone just thinks that's the undisputed team that's going to win. 1980, the gold medal, or not gold medal game.
Yeah, everybody thinks it was the gold medal game, but it wasn't.
No, it was the round 1 of the medal round.
It was the semifinal round.
Okay, yeah.
Before the gold medal game.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we recently watched a certain documentary about that. Caden can tell you a lot about it. He loved it.
USA and Russia. Russia was expected to win 13-0, and then USA ended up beating them. There was pressure there.
Exactly, and so that kind of leads into another question. What's it like playing? Because you've played in some games like this yourself, when everyone expects you to win.
At that time, it's oh shoot, guys, we can't mess up. If it's a smaller school or they're not necessarily as known and we're just better, it's oh gosh, I feel like we make a little bit more mistakes sometimes because it's oh, we're gonna win, it's fine, and I know a few of us on the team last year were guilty of looking at a team just based on their size and saying, oh shoot, we're gonna lose, or oh, we're gonna win. Most of the time it was kind of the opposite of what we thought, but just trying to there's pressure being perfect and not making mistakes. Every little thing you're gonna want to correct.
Yeah, that's right, and that is so common whenever you talk to these guys that went into championship type performances or big level games, playoff games in some cases, or even some big regular season games that carry very heavy consequences with them. You see that all the time. The players that were the favorite after the loss coming back and going, man, there was just so much pressure on us to be perfect out there. And that's one of my favorite, that reminds me of one of my favorite sayings that I like to use a lot of the time. Perfection is the enemy of good. A lot of the time, when you're the team that's got all the expectations, you know what? You actually don't have to go out there and be perfect. You just have to go out there and be good and be yourself and play to your game, play to your strengths. Don't get sucked into the level of competition that the other team, because that's exactly what they want. They want you to play their game, especially if they're the underdog and maybe they're the scrappy team that pounces on mistakes. They're trying to force you into a frantic situation where you make those mistakes. Then you play into their hands. The Dallas Stars in the playoffs, we saw them do that this season. I regretfully say that, but you know that's the way sports go. To paraphrase what a great baseball manager once said.
Yeah. As the underdog, on the other hand, it's one, you're mad that you're the underdog. And so it's always
Sure.
like, you know what? Let's go out there and prove why we should have been the favorite. And also, you've got nothing to lose. It's like, yeah, that team has one loss to start the season or whatever. Let's make them have two. We've got nothing to lose. They're a really good team. James Madison did that last year in the playoffs against Oregon. I mean, they put up a big fight.
Yeah. And it's that mentality of, you know what, you may beat us, but you're going to come out of here hurting, and you're going to remember that you played us.
Small dog, little bark, or small dog, big bark.
There you go. Absolutely. So shifting from one kind of pressure to another, let's talk about, you've also been in the midst of your spring football workouts. How's that going for you, buddy?
That's going really good. Still playing corner. Played a little bit of outside linebacker yesterday at practice. That was fun. Pressure for that, I would say it's just kind of proving myself. Like,
Sure.
The new guys, they don't know who I am, how I play, and so it's just I gotta prove myself that I can back myself up.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have some personal goals that you are looking to meet or, I guess, establish before the season starts?
Just, get to know some of the players, get faster a little bit. I feel like I'm being burned one too many times. And then, well, I should say that's on certain matchups. And just kind of show them, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, don't sleep on me.
There you go. So do you feel pressure to get bigger, stronger, or faster?
A little bit, yeah. Going in there, my first ever spring practice, it was like, oh my gosh, these guys are jacked. Like I was about their average height, so it's not that. But I'm a stick, so it's like, golly, dude, I feel like they're gonna break me in one hit sometimes.
So do you feel like that pressure is coming more from the coaches and the teammates, or yourself, or dad?
I
hope it's not dad, but for somewhere else.
I feel like it's more kind of stemming a little bit from like, I'm tiny, I don't want to get murdered and like get injured. Sure. That kind of.
Yeah, little self-preservation. You want to be able to last all season and play in every game if you can.
Which I was able to last year, but I was also one of the bigger guys I played.
Right. Yeah. So and that's a big transitional thing too, is moving from, you're one of the big guys in 8th grade and now you're one of the little guys in 9th grade. Now, there's a very good chance you'll probably play JV or junior varsity and not at the varsity level, but still, how do you stack up against those other JV guys that, some are sophomores and juniors, but there are a lot of freshmen too?
Most of them are in the same situation I am. It's like their first or second year they're playing, first high school year. I know one of them's played for 2 years. He's about my size. He's a little bit more built than me though, like muscle wise. But right now I'd say we're kind of all in the same situation. No one person is like absolutely standing out. We're all just kind of trying to get to know each other.
Okay. And then let's go for a third aspect of pressure here. So, but this one's different. This one's really fun, honestly. And I know you're going to have fun talking about this. You've got another big first in your life coming up starting tomorrow as you take off for, well, I say tomorrow, I say Monday. Because a lot of you are probably going to watch this on Monday. So, but Monday afternoon, Monday morning, you're taking off for Colorado with the church youth group, and it's your first high school camp. What are you feeling about that?
I'm excited right now. I wouldn't say there's much pressure necessarily.
Sure.
More just, oh crap, I'm going to go out of state for a while, and it's going to be the first time I've done that, like without family or anything. But you know, it'll be fun for sure, and just trying to get to know some of the newer high schoolers because I was already friends with them a little bit when they were in 8th grade and I was in 7th grade. So that helps a little bit, kind of soft launches me, um, and just get to know them, learn more in my faith, and have fun.
All right, that's good, and those are good goals. And like you said, there really shouldn't be any pressure there because this is a potentially life-defining and life-changing moment for you as you go to camp. And so I encourage you just to take it all in, listen to all of the fantastic speaking and teaching that you're going to get to hear. You know, take advantage of the fact that you're going to have some really close personal relationships with the youth pastor and with the leaders in the youth group, and even some of your student leaders, some of the juniors and seniors that have been in there a couple of years ahead of you. I know you've got buddies that have been in the youth group for a couple of years that you look up to, and so you're excited to be back with them. But really pour into that and dial in there and get some of their advice and even talk to them and be like, hey, you made this transition from the middle school group to the high school group. What should I expect this coming year? And really learn from them.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, like we've talked about, we're discussing pressure, and we're going to get more into the meat of the show here now. So, Caden, when you hear the word pressure, what comes to mind?
I would say fear of not performing to people's standards.
That's good. Okay. And what does that look like, or what does that feel or sound like?
Look like I would say, people expect the 1 seed to like absolutely destroy the 16 seed in the NCAA tournament, like make it not even close. And so there's pressure for that. Look like I feel like it's all those loud crowd chants, like they trust you, but there's pressure there. You can see it get to them a little bit when they start to blow a lead. Like Duke started to do that a little bit, and then they fixed it for a tiny bit, and then ended up losing. I don't know if that was necessarily pressure or not. But
yeah, okay. And digging a little deeper. So you've talked at a general level there and used college sports as an example, which I think is good. But at a maybe this past year as a middle schooler, what did pressure look like for you playing middle school football?
Pressure there was just kind of, can I like prove to the coaches that I deserve more playing time?
Okay. Yeah.
And can we back this up?
Sure. Okay. Did you feel like you've got to go out there and I've been given this one play, I'm going to make the best out of this play, and if I go out there and make this play and not ruin it, I'm going to be the hero of the ball game?
Not necessarily hero of the ball game, but it definitely makes me feel good,
Yeah.
And I will say I did have some of my best plays when I had that mentality, but
absolutely. And so where do you now feel pressured the most? And I'm not just talking about in football or on the field. I'm talking in general. What is Caden going through? And I mean down to the moment. Here we are. We're just past Memorial Day. We're entering June, from May into June and starting the summer. What kind of pressure do you feel or do you experience right now?
I feel like there's definitely that football aspect that I was talking about. That's there for sure. And then moving into high school, it's like everything's going to be a lot more advanced than it was in 8th grade. And it's just, there's going to be a big step. And it's the pressure of, can you take that step?
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Can I do this? And that kind of goes with what you were asking yourself and what you were feeling last year as an 8th grader in football. Can I do this? Can I make it? And I know, that was your first season of organized full contact football altogether. So I know that pressure was there for you.
Right.
And as a dad and as a parent, and Heather would tell you the same thing, we almost had this unspoken, we know he's afraid of contact, but we don't want to tell him he's afraid of contact.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to another coaching a coaching moment or a coaching conversation that you and I were able to have. And I think this was really good for you. And correct me if I'm wrong there, because I mean, please, tell me what your version of this was. But I do remember specifically after those first couple of practices and those pads crack,
right,
and you feel that pop, you feel that hit, and then it happens again, and then suddenly there's a big one,
right,
and you're kind of stunned. And I come to you and I tell you, and I'm like, buddy, I want to let you in on a little secret here about contact. And you guys know I love sharing little secrets, and I'll zoom in. I'll do this again. I'll get real close to the mic.
Oh, it's a big one.
Oh yeah. Sometimes the fear of getting hit is worse than the hit.
And yep,
talk about that.
Definitely relate to that, because at first we had the first full pads practice, and I'm like, oh shoot, what's about to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm about to get hit so hard in the next week. And then once you get hit, I would say it was about the third hit for me that I'm like, okay, that's not bad. I kind of like it.
And then something happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I want to hit people. I want to tackle them.
You turn into that animal, and suddenly you're like, where can I hit somebody?
Yeah.
I sounded like a grown-up Beavis there. Anyway,
okay,
we'll move on from that. So is pressure something that other people put on you or something you put on yourself? We talked about that a little bit in the open, but let's talk a bit more about that.
For me, it's something I put on myself. If it's like big D1 sports, like a Game 7, I feel like that's people and yourself putting it on you. So I feel like there's situations where it could be one of those three things.
Yeah.
It depends on the scenario.
Sure. And yeah, and that's definitely one of those like scenario moments where sometimes it depends on the entire context of everything. And I, having been there ahead of you, that's one of the advantages of having a parent that will communicate with you. And my parents were always really good about sharing some of their life stories with me as well. But this is where I think a lot of relationships really come to life. It's in the word relationships. I can relate to you, right? And you can relate to me, and we can share our experiences. So, not just in sports, but really in general, when I was in middle school and high school, those of you that know me, you know that I was involved in a lot of things. I was in high school band, I was in theater and speech competitions. I love to perform, and surprise, I'm a storyteller now. I love to tell the stories of things that happen, and I approach everything that comes my way as a storyteller. But even on the field and on the stage or behind a microphone or behind a podium or behind a camera, I've always really, I don't know, pressure almost had a reverse effect on me. And I've shared this with you before, Caden, but haven't shared this a whole lot publicly. I always did my best stuff when a family member was in the crowd or in the audience. I almost just knew or sensed. And that goes back to, I played 2 full seasons of football as a defensive back and had 1 interception. And you know what? That's the one game that my dad was at. He was at that game, and he even, he recounted the story to me too, that he was just kind of half watching, and then he was like, oh, that's Steven. Oh, yeah. And, I only went like 5 yards. It wasn't a very graceful return at all, but I catch the ball in the air. And what did I yell, Caden?
Oski.
Yeah, I did. I yelled Oski. Apparently, that's a very common thing amongst middle school and high school teams, is to yell Oski when you get an interception. But anyway, yeah, I yell Oski. I catch the ball out of the air. It almost was like, in fact, it happened in slow motion for me. I bet you had, and we'll let you share some of your stories like this here in just a second. Everything really did slow down. You hear these like premier athletes talk about the game just slowing down for them for a second. Like, you're going full speed, but everything else around you is just really slow. And you hear the crowd noise and the cracking of the pads and the players and everybody, and everything almost just goes, and then just quiet. And it's you and the quarterback if you're a defensive back. And I'm watching him, and it felt like he went and threw it right at me and hit me right here. And the receiver was like, if I'm like this, there's where the receiver was. And I did my defensive back training, catch the ball at the highest point possible in front of the receiver so that he can't fight for it. And if he does, he goes over your back. Then he gets the flag and you don't. But that was my everything slows down moment. And I experienced it in theater. I experienced it even in marching band. Like when I knew my parents were in the crowd or when I knew some family members were there, which I had. Shout out to Justin, my cousin. He was like at every football game. He was more there for the football than he was for the band, and I understand that. It's okay. Not many people cheer for the band nerds. Some do, but look, I was even there for the football team. I wasn't there for the band. I'm gonna admit, but I knew I had this sense that I'm gonna put on my best show because somebody here is counting on me and watching me do it. But what are some of your everything slows down moments? I know you had a few of those last season.
Well, for starters, week 2, I think it was my uncle that came out. I think it was Uncle Dom. I injured 2 people on kick returns.
We're not proud that we injured people.
No, textbook tackles.
We are proud that you made a textbook tackle and you drove into contact. Oh, you can be seated. They were perfect. He was boom and just sprung up.
I think I forced a fumble in one of them. We
didn't
cover it.
You did.
Yeah, so definitely that was one of them. He's just coming in and like, oh shoot, he's going directly at me, and so it's like you lower, and then once you hit hard once, that whole game you're locked in pretty much. I had a few practices like that. Where it was like, geez, don't go full contact. I'm like, I'm sorry. And then another one was like a far out game in Rockwall, I think. But it was a really big like farm strong cowboy kind of team. Definitely grew up like lifting stuff, and I had about 4 sacks in that game. That was more so. There was one coach that was like really trusting me, and he talked me up during the game. He was like, "You got this. Just don't jump off sides. Watch the ball. Ignore the center." And I did that, and I had like 4 sacks. It was awesome.
I do remember one moment. There was Caden had jumped off sides as the defensive player. Not to call you out there. Look, everybody does it. Everybody just gets so amped up, and you're like, down, set, go. And you forget to watch the ball, especially if you're playing defense. But I remember, they walked the 5 yards off, and the defense is lining up again, and I call Caden out. I'm like, Caden, look at me. Hey, watch the ball. And then I kid you not, he lines up, and he's just doing this.
Yeah.
And I see him like this, and I'm like, you know what? He took the coaching perfectly. And you know what happened? You know what you didn't do?
I didn't jump off sides.
You did not jump off sides. Yeah, you listened to the coach.
I think I got a sack on that too.
I think you did. Yeah, you bounced right back. So, that's my boy. Not that I can play favorites as a coach, but that's my boy. So I want to read to you. This is a good application here. We're going to go to Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. And yeah, I saw that. I saw you do the little 6-7 mannerism there. And it says, and I want you to kind of react to this after I read it, Caden. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. What do you think about that?
It's just kind of like there's no reason to fear anything. You believe like God is our Creator and our Savior, and what's the worst that could happen? I go up to him and like I join him. Like that's the best case scenario when you think about it. And so it's just like there's no reason to be worried about anything because God's got you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why are we anxious when we've got a God and his son who have been through all of this like we have before? Jesus was in our pastor in our Sunday school class did some really cool teachings on this not long ago about just how significant those temptations were that Jesus went through. Because some of them didn't seem to make sense to me. I'm like, okay, turning the rocks into bread. How's that a temptation? I don't know. But when you really get down to the understanding of that you have the power to create food out of nothing. Why don't you just go ahead and do that? Because you're the God of the universe. And Jesus was like, no, that would defy the mission that I'm on right now. I am here to show my complete and total devotion to my Father. to provide for me. And so why am I going to throw all that away for just a silly loaf of bread? I've got more to do than that. Yeah. Any thoughts there? Just, yep.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's all right. That's cool. So, just again, really stress and anxiety come from perspective. And look, there are a lot of bigger, far more real stresses and causes for anxiety or just outright, sometimes gut wrenching prayers pouring out your faith to God than what happens on a football field. So, please understand that we're not saying sports and competition are more important than anything that's going on in the world. But and Caden, I want you to kind of expound on this after I say it, but what happens on the playing field and what happens when you're working as a team and when you're working in an athletic environment with other players and with coaches, you learn so much, one, about yourself and your own abilities and even your own weaknesses, that either weaknesses you can't control and you're not going to be able to overcome. Look, a big guy that weighs 300 pounds and is 6'5", probably not going to have a sub 4.5 40. And that's okay. That's fine. He does not need to try to drag himself to do that. But you know what? He could absolutely bench press me.
Yeah.
And by me, I mean like 220 pounds. He could bench press a big dude, or he could bench press a large amount. And he can certainly make strides and make goals to be better at what he is strong at. But I don't know. I feel like I'm almost running out of my momentum with what I was trying to say there. But Caden, do you have anything to add to that thought?
Yeah, I would definitely say you learn more about yourself. Because for me, it shows I don't really think I'm a quitter anymore. Like after last season, just, there were hard conditionings and there were some hard ones. But just pushing through those helped me learn. I was like, okay, I can do this. Like I can. I'm ready. And then definitely like
that's okay. It's okay to lose what you're going to say. Sometimes that happens in life. Sometimes that happens in business, and sometimes that happens on the football field. You go out there and you're like, all right, right 22, lead on 3. and things just kind of fizzle out. And everybody's looking at you and blinking, and you're like, just go with what I said. Let's do it. And sometimes you have to just schoolyard it and make it up out there. People don't really know that, but sometimes that does happen. Hey, just run a go route, and we're going to make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so that's exactly what we're talking about. Like in life, you've got a lot of lessons that you can learn. And again, it's not just on the athletic field. Working as a fellow band student within a marching band or within a symphony or something like that, within an acting troupe, within a theater group, within a drill team, within a cheer squad, all of that. Learning how to interact together with people that have a same common goal and a same common direction that you're going, you learn so much from that, and so much about teamwork and how to either be a leader or be submissive to a leader. And I know people hate that word submission, but submission doesn't mean rolling over backwards and doing exactly what they want you to do. Submission means, you know what, I'm giving up my own goals and my own self-interest here for the betterment of what we're all trying to do together.
Right.
What do you think about that, kid?
Yeah, I think you're right there. And it's just you learn so much about yourself, your other teammates, what you can do to help them, how you can like build each other up. You know what their weaknesses are, so you know what you can ask them to help with and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So as we start to kind of reflect on this conversation, which I think has been a really good one, and I'm not being biased there, but what's one pressure you think people misunderstand about being 14 or about being a ninth grader?
That everything's still handed to you, like on a silver platter, and that you don't have to work for anything.
Wow.
I think that's wrong.
Okay. You got a little more to say about that? That's good.
A little bit. Like, I've worked for my grandpa. I've been working for him since it was like, what, 9?
Yeah, so about 5 years.
Yeah, it was a long time. You're in that stage where you do have to start working for money. You have to work if you're playing sports. there's just a lot of working, and people are like, oh, well, no, you get whatever you want if you just ask. And it's like, that's not the case. Because, like, you have to work for a lot of things. One of my favorite, I think it was, I mean, I worked for my helmet, I worked for all my gear.
Yeah,
but
he has.
Yeah, just one of my favorite pairs of cleats that I have now. I worked for them, and then eventually my friends did pay for it, but I think it was with my money. Yeah, it was with my money. Never mind. So I worked for those.
I can vouch that he has earned paying for just about every piece of equipment that he's had, especially all of his, his more blingy type stuff. If he wants a cool shiesty or if he wants a cool mouthpiece. I know you hate shiesties, but I just threw that out there.
I just don't like myself.
You just prefer to not have one. Yeah, but anything that is an accessory for his uniform that makes him look cool and feel like he's an NFL player, then yeah, he's bought that on his own and he's worked hard for that. And that's something that's been really cool to watch. Do you, Caden, have any questions reflecting on this conversation that you might want to ask dear old dad?
I mean, what's some pressures being a dad, and like, what did your pressures look like back when you were a kid? Back when you were still riding horses and
everything. Making an age joke, awesome. Okay, I did not have to ride a horse. My dad rode the horse. No, just kidding. And I was in the buggy in the back. No, I'm really kidding. I think what was a lot different back then, and that I think your generation and even your sister's generation, just because y'all are 5 years apart, so there's still even kind of a difference in
technically same
technology there, right? But what I'm saying is, cell phones were just starting out when I was in high school. I graduated in '97. I think I shared that in episode 1 when I was getting the nickname story, but we didn't have information just at our fingertips in a little device like this. We had nothing like that we could use, or our teachers used to tell us, and this was great, when we were doing our math work and working it out on paper, you're not going to have a calculator in your hands all the time when you're an adult. Joke's on you, Mrs. Smith. Look at this. I do. And I can find the square root of 3,774 just like this. I have no idea what the square root of 3,774 is, or even if it is a square. But I do know I can find that out at my fingertips now, even though I was told as a kid that I wouldn't be able to. And so, yeah, we had to do a little bit more digging. The internet was starting to kind of take hold then. So we did have the internet available. We had to, like you do with your big school projects and stuff, come into the office and use the computer and not just hammer stuff out on your phone. Now, you can do that a lot easier now than you did even just a few years ago as a student. But of course, part of that was you didn't have your own cell phone yet, and you do now. So I think that's, and then as far as the pressure of being a dad, of course, there's all kinds of financial, emotional, even physical pressures that come from being a dad, and then also being a husband, and then also being a worker, and being the submissive employee to my employer.
And a coach all for kinds. A little bit.
What's that?
And a coach for a little bit.
And a coach for a little bit, yeah, of course. And then still trying to slip time in there for myself to do some of my own stuff that I want to do, like starting a podcast with my son.
Yeah.
But it's all of that pressure really builds who I am, though, and shows me what I can and what I can't do. And it also goes back to one of the things I said at the very beginning of this episode, that perfection is the enemy of good. You don't have to be perfect. First of all, Jesus Christ was perfect on our behalf. We should be striving for that, but we should also not get so caught up in never making a mistake that it costs us. And that kind of has another sports application to it. You see sometimes these quarterbacks that are waiting for the perfect moment, and what happens to them on like, let's say one particular play, they need a touchdown pass. It's 4th down and goal. They're at the 5-yard line. They're down by 3. A touchdown will win this thing with 2 seconds left. If you're the quarterback and you're looking for the perfect moment, what's going to happen?
You're going to get sacked, or you're going to throw a pick. There's no in between there.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're almost too hyper focused on this is gonna be perfect, it's gotta be perfect. You know what? You see the window, you take it. Whether that's taking off and running, whether that's going around the outside, following your lead blocker, or whether that's hitting the guy that has just a shade of a window and you know it's going to take a perfect pass, but you know what? You can't hesitate for the perfect situation. You have to just try. You've got to go for it. And that's why, the gunslinger quarterbacks, not the ones that are reckless, that throw 17 picks a game because, ooh, okay, you got really emotional and overmodulated about that one. But that's a good example. Not the quarterbacks that just heave it and throw it up there with no hope at all, but the ones that really are taking calculated risks that know, you know what, this may not work, but if there's a 5% chance that I can do it by hitting that one small little square right there, I'm going to go for it. And
sadly, also Caleb Williams.
Okay, we're kind of picking on somebody tonight.
No, that's not a picking on him. Like he does. I don't necessarily like him. He doesn't deserve that cover. But he does take calculated risks.
He does, but again, if you're waiting for perfection, though, err on the side of there are going to be times where if you freeze in the moment and don't do anything, that's honestly the worst thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
You should at least try something. And even and this was your, I think, one of your first 1 or 2 carries whenever you had first gotten the ball in a game, in a real full contact game situation. I saw you get to the line and you were like, oh no, what do I do? And you really only learn from experience, but why is that the worst thing you can do in that situation?
Because you're just standing there. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting the team, you're not doing anything, and you're just kind of letting yourself get tackled.
Yeah. So to wrap everything up here, one final question. What's something you're worried about right now that probably won't even matter a year from now?
Adjusting to high school football.
Okay.
I would say.
And why is that?
Because everyone's like 2 times bigger than they were in middle school. They hit harder. They play better. There's higher standards. All that.
All right. Any closing thoughts today as we start to wrap this up and as we hear the wrap-up music start to play underneath us?
Just know pressure will happen, but when it comes, it can define you.
There you go. That's good. Pressure will define you. And I don't really think I have anything that I can say that would add to that. I'm just going to give out some shout outs. We've gotten some follows from my cousin Justin that I mentioned earlier. We're getting follows from Jimmy, really good buddy of mine. And of course, we couldn't be doing this without everybody else that's starting to listen in and share. Caden, I can't do this without you, buddy. You are an awesome force on this show, and it's fun to work with you and do this alongside you. And of course, a big thanks to Heather, because she's my awesome, supportive wife who has been cheerleading us through this whole thing. And one more special shout out of thanks to Purple Planet. And it's purpleplanet.com. They provide the music for us. We're going to walk this thing out. We're going to head out. Any thanks you want to give out there, Kate?
Just thank y'all for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.
Yes. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Franchastic Podcast.